So I'm a conversion rate optimization specialist. And when I tell people that, they usually think that it goes something like this. I look at some numbers, I've got the data, and just by looking at all the reporting, I know what we need to change, and I know what magic we can affect there. But it actually is a little bit more like this. When we're talking about magic, I've got my Dumbledore reference here for those of you who are familiar with the Harry Potter series. It is actually a lot more about making tough decisions, evaluating all of the different aspects of our marketing programs, our data, of course, but also just making some tough decisions because we can't always do the things that we want to our websites, to our ads, to any of our other uh, elements of our marketing program, right? Like we have people we have to answer to. We have a boss. We have a CEO that it's always the highest paid opinion, the hippo in the room, that ends up making a lot of our choices. But what it really comes down to in the end, again, is data. How do we know if our marketing is successful? Think about that just for a second. Congratulations. Your emails are awesome. People are opening them. Like, great. Success. Also, your ads are awesome. People are clicking on them. Success, right? Score. Nailed it. But are people converting on the ad itself? Or in the email? Is it possible for someone to actually convert in an email? Chances are your actual success metric looks more like submitting a form or making a purchase, which means that people can only convert once they're on the landing page. Like you have to, of course, attract that click on your ad, on your email, on whatever else you're using to get people to your website, organic search, whatever it is. But the fact of the matter is more than 88% of the time, people are not converting. The average conversion rate for a landing page, just an average run-of-the-mill landing page, is about 12%. And like that's a pretty high conversion rate. I've seen them as low as like 1.5%. And so we can make a really great case for optimization because we're spending a ton of money getting people to our website and to our landing pages. But then they're leaving. We're losing them forever. Most of those people, once they bounce from your website, are never going to come back, no matter how many times you remarket to them. So we're just burning money. Like that's not great. So we can maximize our budgets. We can essentially make more with whatever little budget we have. Since I know there are a lot of smaller companies represented in the room today, we can maximize that budget by making our conversion rates better, by just simply making more people do the thing we want them to do once they're on the website. And for those of you who do Google Ads and other sorts of Google related products, the landing page experience, like Google knows. Like if you have Google Analytics installed on your website, which you probably do, Google knows if people are sticking around. And that can influence how many more bids you win, or how much better your search results are. Okay, so how do we actually do it? We want to get more people to do the thing, right? Obviously, I'm like setting myself up here for the big reveal, which was pretty obvious from the titles. We're going to talk about testing, which I know testing can be very scary when we're thinking about dipping our toes into it for the first time. There's always the chance, there's always some risk involved. But if we take a data-driven and scientific approach to our testing, we can have more wins more often, which of course is what we want. Because again, our goal is to get more people to do the things that we want once they come to our website. So of course, again, data nerd, fully will own that. First thing we want to do is start with our data and our observations. And so what do I mean by that? Really, it's about what's working and for who is it working for? Are there differences between, say, like mobile and desktop, different channels? And then what does our audience interact with or ignore? So of course, again, Google Analytics, one of my favorite tools. Sorry to the Adobe guy I talked to earlier. Taking a look at any of the reports, whether it be an ads reporting system, Google Analytics, anything else that you have, you can pull apart your audience. Start looking at different groups of people and how they are interacting differently with your website. Are there differences between mobile and desktop performance? Chances are there are. Like, I've never once seen it where there is equal performance between desktop and mobile. Usually one or the other is winning for a reason that we can hypothesize about. But we can even get beyond, quantitative data. One of my other favorite tools is a heat mapping tool. This is a crazy egg example. There are a few others on the market. If you've never run a heat map on your website, you're really missing out because it is so unbelievably fascinating to see what people click on, even the things that are not supposed to be clickable. It's incredible how people actually interact with your website because you sit there, you're the strategist, you're the designer, you sit down with your designer and your developer and you're like, we're going to make an amazing website and it's going to work perfectly. Never once in the history of the universe has a website launched and been perfect. A perfect website doesn't exist. There's always room for improvement because people don't behave predictably. So here's an example from my previous slide. Mobile users typically have lower conversion rates and average purchase amounts. It's just a fact. Some people see the opposite, where their desktop performance is lower depending on where they're doing their marketing and where they're pulling in their traffic, which again, every program is different and every program deserves its own look at the data. So I take all of those observations and I start thinking about, like, why do those differences exist? Like, what about my mobile experience could be having a negative impact on their decision to purchase? Where else can I be interacting with those mobile users on that website? If you've never visited your own website on your phone, which surprisingly some people haven't, go take a look at it. See if there's anything that's broken or frustrating or confusing about the experience. So here's an example. Again, with our mobile audience that I'm picking on for today. So they have these smaller average purchase amounts. Could we show them higher value items when they get to the website on the mobile landing pages? Or could we reframe our benefits, make it more like if we're a SaaS company, if we're someone that is selling something that is specifically to be used on a mobile device, can we more specifically address those issues? Or can we use something like social pressure? All of these different like psychological effects can have a huge impact on a user's decision to continue pursuing your website. Okay, now we've got our observations with our data, which we've organized hopefully by theme. And we've got our hypotheses or our thinking about what we could possibly change. The next step is to actually go and say, I think this thing will be better if we change this thing. So I'm sure you've all taken, basic physical science in high school or middle school. And so a hypothesis, it's still science. We're saying by changing a certain thing, for example, I'm going to change my benefits module to include our mobile app, to talk to the fact that we have a mobile app, is going to improve our mobile conversions because it demonstrates the ease of use for our mobile users. Now this is something I can literally go and test on my page, validate whether or not it has an impact on performance, make the change if it wins, and enjoy the improved performance. I'm getting ahead of myself. What we really need to, the hypothesis is the crux of any good data-driven testing program, because it's going to tell you something even if your test fails. And by fail, I mean the thing you thought was going to happen didn't happen. That's what we would consider a failure in the testing world. But is it really a failure if we're still learning something? It's also going to help us keep our elements and our metrics really focused. Because again, we can change everything on our website, but if we change everything on our website and it all stays the same, do we know what actually had the impact? Maybe one thing helped and another thing hurt. So we've got our ideas, we have our hypotheses, and I'm sure at this point you're like, the whiteboard in my head is exploding. I don't know what to do with all of these ideas, all the different things we could possibly do. Now we get to prioritize. Again, data girl, I've got a spreadsheet for that. I am a recovering data analyst, so really have a spreadsheet for everything, including like what I'm packing. Like it's a little out of control. But how do we actually prioritize? Yep, sure, we can put it in a spreadsheet. I like to assign an effort benefit score. And so I have 3 columns in this sheet. I'm sorry, they're a little bit hard to see. One is for technical effort. One is for learning priority, like how much do we want to learn that thing, or how much does your boss want you to learn that thing? And one is for how difficult it will be to build the thing, because nothing we build is ever free, right? It's going to involve, developer time. It's going to involve designer resources. It's going to involve downtime where you can't be testing something else. Those are all lost opportunity costs that should be captured somewhere when you're considering whether or not it's worth it to run a test, because not every test is going to be worth it. And so how to actually calculate this? I like to do numbers. So I've got my expected impact. I think something will have a huge change or a little change, or like I'm somewhere in the middle. Our learning priority, again, how much does my boss want me to do this thing? I literally added that column in response to a client once that was like, but this is the thing I want to do. And I'm like, fine, I will capture it in the spreadsheet. So we did. And 5 years later, it's still in the spreadsheet. So it seems to be working. And then also technical effort. So here it is in real life. I usually do like 3, 2, 1. So a high expected impact, a 3 is a high thing. And then we have learning priority is 2. 2 is like medium. And then it's also going to be like a medium technical effort. And so I'm going to subtract that technical effort from the other 2 just to give it some sense of balance, because again, we want to take that technical effort out of the equation, or put it into the equation so that we can take it out of the priority score. Because now we can then sort the spreadsheet. If we want to just go by the thing that has the biggest impact or potential biggest impact, great. But we need to see in real life all at once how much time and effort that's going to take us. So there we go. Now we can test and repeat, right? It's just that easy. We develop prioritize our test ideas, plan and execute a test, a hypothesis, evaluate the test, and just do it all over again. Right? We're not done yet. Don't worry. It's only been 15 minutes. We've got plenty more to talk about. Because beyond the science of optimization, there's also an art, deciding what we should actually be changing. Because sure, we've got our data that shows like our mobile users are not performing as well. And we've got like some ideas that we can think of, that we can brainstorm with our team. But where else can we get ideas? And when we're faced with that kind of decision paralysis, we end up saying like, oh, it's just going to be so risky to do those things. This is a real test that I had to run once. Does it hurt you as much as it hurts me? Hey, guess what? There were no results because people don't care. What about this one? Some stock image? Does the stock image on the left work better than the stock image on the right? Hey, guess what? Nobody cares. Okay, that's a lie. Sometimes your boss cares. And sometimes the CEO is like, I think a blue button will do better than an orange button. And you're like, fine, whatever. Like, let's run the stupid button color test. But if you're sitting here thinking that you're the exception to the rule to the button color test, you're probably not. So move on from that. Like, just put it aside. Don't even consider running a button color test. Because why does nobody care about the stupid button color or that stupid image that you put on your landing page? It's because our marketing is a winding pathway through many different interactions. This is just one example of how someone could move through your marketing funnel and how many different points of inflection they have. But every single one of these points of inflection is a place where we have opportunity to make improvement, to go a little bit further, to make that connection with our customers, to make that improvement that will end up feeding towards our bottom line. Because by the time someone's made it through this winding pathway and is ready to click your blue or orange or green or purple button at the end of the purchase funnel, They've already made up their mind by everything else that they've seen on their way. Huge opportunity. And yes, we will break a few eggs. Again, cliche. We have to break a few eggs to make a good omelet. It's a cliche and a saying for a reason, because not every idea is going to be great. There is some aspect of risk, and you just have to embrace that. The other thing that I want us to throw away and to never use again is the word best practices. Best practices make us complacent. What I want you to do with them is to call them test practices. Because a best practice, the reason something becomes a best practice, is it because just everyone in the industry is doing it? Has it actually ever been validated and tested and tried? And if it's been validated and tested and tried, has it been validated, tested, and tried in your industry, on your website? I think you see where I'm going. These are great test ideas. Again, to validate. Some of you may only work in one channel. You might only be working in ads. You might only be working on websites. But asking people what's working in other channels is incredibly powerful as well, because some things might be working in search ads that you've never even considered doing on a landing page. Ugh, the boog. I'm like, let me do my little fly dance up here. When I saw this stat, I was shocked that only 14% of businesses report sharing experimentation data across departments. I'm not just talking about sales to marketing. I'm talking about the people that run the ads and the people that run the website. I've worked with clients that are like this, where the only time the marketing team and the fundraising team, I used to be in a nonprofit, the only time they talked to each other was on our weekly optimization calls. And I made them talk to each other. And we had one testing roadmap that we all looked at together. The other biggest trap is just because we could change everything doesn't mean we should change everything. I brought that up a little bit before about the importance of a hypothesis and having a focused element that we're trying to change to see if it will improve performance. Because again, if we change everything, it's almost the same as changing nothing. And yes, there is a time and a place for a package test. I was having this conversation over lunch, but being authentic about what we're changing and why we're changing it, and then communicating those results out to our colleagues, to other people in the industry, we all owe that to each other. Also, one of my favorite ways to get test ideas is to steal from other people. Yes, some of the best tests that I've ever run for my nonprofit clients, I found on Old Navy's website, or the ads I was getting served after I fell down an Instagram hole and clicked through some random ad. Finding inspiration from anywhere. Remember this landing page? I've shown this a few times. It's not mine. This is just something that I saw that I was like, this is really clean. I liked the page. And also Chime is testing the shit out of this page. I go and look at this every week because I get a different version. And I'm like, what if they changed this time? What have they learned? Because by observing other people in the industry, even if it's not in your vertical, you can get a sense of how other experimentation programs are working and find those ideas. Because I'm not a creative person. But when I see something, I'm like, yeah, I'm obsessed with that. I want to try it. Even if I have to take it and make it a little bit different. And if I have to change the way it functions just a little bit, and it could possibly work for us. And yes, my desktop does look like this right now. I'm really sorry for any of you who are scared by this. I'm a little scared by this too right now. But I'm constantly taking screenshots of things because I'm a logical, data-driven person. I'm not a designer. I'm not wildly creative. But when charged with an optimization program to come up with test ideas that will move the needle for companies that are spending $1 million on ads, you have to get ideas and inspiration from somewhere. And it is totally okay to get that from other people and other competitors. And yep, this is how I should be organizing it. Yeah, we're working on it. So, because ultimately, our audience doesn't live in a bubble. Like, why should our test ideas? Like, because our audience, like, you might be comparing yourself to other like SaaS products on the market or other, I know there's a few government agencies here as well. You might be comparing yourself like to like how is our website comparing to the websites of the competitors around us? But the people who are coming to your website are also shopping on Amazon. They're also shopping on Etsy. They're also navigating memberships for Spotify and Netflix. They're interacting with the AI that Netflix has. Yeah, I paid attention. I wasn't taking a nap. We can't limit ourselves when it comes to our industries. Speaking of which, if you haven't done some basic marketing research, you should, because it's really fun. Okay, might be a bit of a nerd, but it is really fun. Doing some psychology research, starting to understand why and how people make decisions. What happens when people are overwhelmed with too many options, for example? What happens when you tap into an emotional response? That's the type of information that is incredibly valuable when we're developing our marketing materials, because ultimately we want to have an emotional connection with our customers. I know, yeah, we want to sell to them as well, but having that emotional reaction and that emotional response can go a long way to getting someone more invested and more interested in your company before they even considered your product. That was a lot. We're all still here. We're all still making it. I know I'm standing between you and happy hour as well, so we're going to get through the data and then it will be happy hour. The number one question that I get when it's time to start running a test is how many variants can we run at once and how long will it take to get a winner? Because we want to be able to run as many as we can and we want a winner. And by winner, I mean we're talking about a statistically significant result, which I will cover what that means. Because even if a huge performance uptick happens, if you're going from like 3 conversions to 6 conversions, like that might be an increase of 100%. But is it really actually enough to move the needle for your bottom line? Like maybe if you're selling something really high end, like a Tesla or something, and going from 3 Teslas to 6 Teslas, that's a huge increase for a bottom line. But chances are going from 3 subscriptions to 6 subscriptions or 3 leads to 6 leads is like not actually going to matter that much. So what we need to do is actually consider the sample size we need with how many variants we're running. Because the more we split our audience into different little buckets, the fewer people we're actually testing on, and the smaller the pool is for finding a pattern. So again, this is where the number parts come in. There are a few of them on the internet. I'm sorry that the link is hard to see. This is the Optimizely sample size calculator. You can literally go and play with it, and you can see how the numbers will change with your baseline conversion rate, which is like how the page is doing right now, and then splitting your audience based on how much traffic you get in a week or a month between 2 versions of your page or 3 versions of your page or 10 versions of your page. How long will it take to detect a pattern of improvement? Because that's what we're looking for. We're looking for the pattern of improvement. And of course, sometimes you need a bigger sample size, and really you just need to determine where you can run that test, if you can reduce the number of things you're testing, or as one of my friends from lunch said during our chat, you want your test to be a scream, not a whisper. Because the whisper is going to take a really long time to detect if that is making a difference. And what we want to actually be saying is, does this change make a difference? And this is the warning you'll see. This is from Google Optimize. So you've got your test running, it's all set up, it's like going really great. And you really, really, really want to check it all the time. All the time, all the time, all the time. But every time you check it, you're performing another statistical test on the results. Because with statistics, there's always the element of random chance. That's like the one time you check it might be the one time something is winning. So these are 2 test results from the same test 2 weeks apart. The top one says my control is winning, and that is a 96% chance that I'm failing. 2 weeks later, the exact opposite happened. And so if I had stopped my test 2 days into the test and said, like, no, look, we already have a winner, it's so great, and relied just on the email traffic that we had gotten in that first 2 days of the test, I would have completely missed that the majority of my audience actually prefers the other version. And by rolling out the non-winning version, we would have ended up losing a ton of money in the long run. And so being absolutely positive that we are choosing a winner is crucial. And so this is where the actual statistics start coming in. So this is a chi-squared calculator. I stole it from my previous employer. Shh, don't tell them. It's on their website. Don't worry, it's public. Essentially what we're just doing is popping in the numbers, like how many people were exposed to the thing and then how many people did the thing. And these calculators will tell you whether or not enough people have seen it to tell you if there is a pattern of change being detected. I should have put a QR code on this. QR codes have gotten such a glow up in the last couple of years. They've been really great. Next time. So what do we actually mean by statistical significance? We're talking about confidence by saying that 19 times out of 20 at 95% confidence, essentially what we're saying is 19 out of 20, if we did the same thing on the same group of people, we would get the exact same result. Simple as that. But please, 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 please never ever say that a variant won if there was not any statistical significance. Because essentially you're going to go into a meeting and there's probably going to be your boss and maybe the CEO and some other people that are gullible and that you can convince with data. And you'll say well, we didn't get statistical significance, but this version had more sales. All they're going to hear is that version had more sales and why are we not using that version then? But if it wasn't actually a winner, there is a chance that it was a loser. And then we'll lose money over time. And more importantly, you as an employee, you as a marketer, a strategist, will try to then change that page that supposedly got more sales. And they'll say, but why are we changing it? Didn't it do better? We got more sales from this other one. So keep the data on your side. Keep a tight ship when we're talking about winners and losers. And just make sure you're talking about results in a way that leaves open the opportunity to try something new. So here we go. We've got all the pieces now. Building our data-driven optimization program. We have to balance all of these different things when we're prioritizing our tests. We've got our costs, got our attempted benefits, emphasis on our program goals, right? We want to make sure that we're changing things that are actually going to have an impact on our bottom line, not just because we want our website to be prettier, even though valid, I understand. And making sure that you have enough people to be testing on. It's a hard pill to swallow sometimes when I have clients come to me and say, we want to test on this page. We think we can have such a huge improvement. And I'm like, guys, you get 100 people to this page in a month. That's going to be really hard to be able to find something that's going to demonstrate that pattern of improvement. And so it's okay, well, we can just do an optimization then. Just say we're just going to change this thing because we think it will do better. And that's fine sometimes too, even though I'll pour one out for the opportunity to test. But of course, it's so easy to get distracted by a shiny thing, something new that you see on the internet. Especially our bosses will come to us and say I know you have this plan, you've got it all planned out, but I saw this thing, we have to test it right now. Try to cut them off at the knees and say no, we have a plan. We have our priority document. We've already talked about this. We are happy to add that idea to our roadmap and assign some priority scores. And if it rises to the level of being the highest priority thing based on our effort and benefit, absolutely we'll slot it in. But if we do have lower hanging fruit that we've already identified, let's stay with the schedule and maybe slot that in later. Maybe that's a Q4 project. Maybe that's a Q1 project. Think about that for later. So I love me one of these little timelines. I usually do them as Gantt charts so you can see how like which tests are live on which pages over time, which is very helpful for clients that are this. Because they're like, wait, don't we have a test going? I'm like, yes, we do. Yes, we do. It's right here. It's right here. It's in the spreadsheet. Again, spreadsheets are great. I feel like I'm just like prophesizing spreadsheets as well today. But again, every test should have your unique name. Make sure you know what it's called. Don't just call it like test 41B. Like a year from now, you're going to be like, what the fuck was test 41B? Like, I don't remember. Like, give it a descriptive name. Like just keep it internal if you need to, but unique names. Also, the judgment on how difficult it will be. This is the effort benefit score. The number of people you need in order to test, and then what's the last one? Again, main metric for success. What are we trying to improve? Remember at the very beginning, we're talking about like sinking that basketball through the hoop. We're talking sales, we're talking leads. Sometimes we are talking clicks. If we're talking awareness, like top of the funnel ads, like a click can sometimes be a great thing if you're doing something like a display ad where like all you need to do is get that click, because then it's up to the landing page to do their job. But remember, once you're ready to launch the test, let go of your expectations about how it's going to do. Let the data speak for themselves. Let your audience tell you what they want and be ready to listen. So here we go. It was a lot. Don't worry, I have, again, a Gantt chart because I can't help myself. First thing you do, remember we were generating our ideas, we're looking at our data, we're being inspired from the internet. The next thing we did is research. We understand why things happen, why people are making the decisions that they're making based on psychology, or maybe based on previous tests. And because of that, we're now taking our ideas and our inspiration and we're turning them into hypotheses. Finally, we're getting to prioritize. We've got tons of ideas, we've got hypotheses, we're ready to go. Time to put it in the spreadsheet and assign that effort benefit score. And then lastly, we get to evaluate. We're going to actually have the numbers to back up our assertions. And don't forget to share with your colleagues. Because again, you don't want to be the 14%, or you don't want to be the 86% that is not sharing. You want to be that 14% that you're like, look, we're making it happen across the entire company. Your CEO would be really impressed, by the way. Because if you never stop testing, then your program will never stop improving. You have a constant learning trajectory. So I hope you're all ready to go out there and test, because the limit does not exist. Cool. I'm sure there are questions. I see questions on faces, so I know there are already questions. These are so funny. Throw it. Oh my God. We're reaching that point.
All right. So, okay. Oh, wow. That was fantastic. I knew it would be. Thank you very much. So I'm going to ask a question. I already know the answer is yes, but do you have in your memory banks a series of split tests where you always know what the winner is going to be, and every time you've ever tested it, this has always been the winner? Bonus points if you ran this test to prove to a client who initially did not want to run that test, and you just knew, I know this is going to win, but we have to do it in order to prove to the client. So what are some of those, like just 3 or 4 clear split test winners that just always blow the control out of the water?
It's so hard. So first of all, there's no one size fits all with testing. It has varied from industry to industry and vertical to vertical, even within when I was just doing nonprofit. I will say that headline tests are severely underrated. Most of the time, like that is, people will make a judgment on your site within the first 2 seconds of them being there. And so the fastest way to communicate that is with a headline. It's not with a hero image. Like if you think that your hero image is the thing that's convincing people to stick on your website, you're incorrect. That said, we also can see I was working with a couple of animal rights nonprofits for a while, and there were people would say that they didn't like the imagery, and then we would test out of that imagery, and it would still work. Like we would try to test out of it, and it was just so. Don't always believe what people say; believe what people do. And then the other one that almost always wins is making my page longer on mobile, which again you don't expect. But the reason behind that is people are trained to keep scrolling on their phones. Like just think about how you use like Twitter or Instagram or whatever. Like you scroll until there's something that catches your attention, that stops your scroll, that you want to engage with, you want to read. And the more you give someone on, especially a mobile page, the greater likelihood that they're going to actually find something that resonates with them and stick around. But as soon as they reach the bottom of that page, if they haven't found it, they're out, and you're never going to talk to them again. So don't be afraid of making your mobile pages really long.
Thank you.
Yep. Almost in the exact opposite direction to that question. Was there one test or maybe a couple of tests that shocked you more than anything else when you ran them?
Honestly, the mobile page, the first time we did that, like that was kind of a wild, crazy idea that I actually got from a content marketing conference where they're like, no, long content's the future. I'm like, I don't believe you. And I was like, fine, I'll test it, whatever. Then it won, and then I felt stupid that I hadn't considered it before. I hate to say it, but like one time a button color surprised me, which I was really irritated about. After I just told you all to not test button color, I had to. This is the like, I had to do this because the client wanted me to do it. I've done probably 20 button color tests in my life. One time it won. One time. It was orange. We went from like green to orange or something, which I'm like, that should have been obvious. Like we shouldn't have had a green button on the website. Like it's fine. Cool. Other questions? I just want to go happy hour.
Thank you so much. I don't know if you saw me shaking my head in agreement on dozens of things that you were saying about convincing your boss, because we have a newsletter that goes out, and we had an intern who convinced us to switch to MailChimp. I don't know if anybody uses MailChimp here. And always listen to interns. Someday they may be the CEO of a company. I know a CEO of a company who started as an intern. Anyway, when we started out, within 2 hours of the newsletter going out, he'd say, "Oh, we have so many clicks already," and I'm like, "No. 2 hours, that's not enough time." And then my boss would say, Monday morning, so how do we do? And I'm like, wait a few more hours at least, because people are just getting into the office or whatever else. So is there any other advice to continually harp on your bosses and coworkers that be patient with the test?
Yeah, so the best way to do it is to set expectations up front with like how long you expect the test to run. And so that's that like little sample size calculator. Some of them will give you an estimate like based on how much daily or monthly traffic you get, like how long it will take to detect like a small change or a big change. And so I've actually been in the process of training one of my clients right now too, who wants to check it every single week. And we have a client call every week, and he's like, "How's the test doing? How's the test doing?" And we're like, "Chill out, bro. Like you gotta wait a minute." And so we've started doing our compromises bi-weekly, like giving that chance to normalize, because we do know that there are, email campaigns that go out, and there are, ad groups that are launched, and maybe sometimes we'll get weird traffic because we're mentioned on the Washington Post or whatever, and we'll get like an extra bump in traffic. It's weird. And so we want that data to all normalize so that we're not just looking at the behavior of one group of people if we're testing on a website that is for all groups of people, right? We want to make sure that we're normalizing. I'd say it's just like boundary setting and expectation setting. Like the best thing you can do with data. And being consistent. Don't break your own rules. It's hard sometimes. You want to check that test.
Thank you. This was like a really good presentation. Our organization, we're a nonprofit. We're launching a new website, brand new design, and I know, it's a huge flip from our current website, which was like the bane of my existence. But when is it too soon to start testing on things, given it is a new website? Like, what's your recommendation on giving time for it to breathe? Or
I love testing right away. Honestly, like PETA was actually one of my clients when they launched their new website, and we actually ended up doing a pre-test on one section with the new design, which was cool, just to validate some things and before we started rolling it out. But we've been like constantly testing on it for basically since it went up. I would say like try to keep it limited to like specific elements. So like your donation page maybe, or like if you have like a donate banner on the homepage, like email capture, that sort of thing. Like be really focused at first, just to say like, okay, can we do like language in our email capture, or the image on the donation form and that sort of thing. I'd love to talk to you. I have 10 years of nonprofit experience. Like, let's go.
Thank you.
But yeah, the other best thing to do with a website redesign, this is just for everyone, is to capture metrics like before and after launch. So like the month before your new site launches, or even the 6 months before, like get back and like make sure you have that like historical data for things like bounce rate and conversion rates and email signups and like all of that as a historical reference, so that when someone asks like, how is the new site performing compared to the old site, you have an answer. And like if the new site is falling down on something like an email conversion, or like maybe fewer people are clicking through the donation page or clicking through their cart and finishing the checkout, you're able to actually say like, what about the old site was better, that we could then like pull elements of that into the new site. You're all going to be testing experts now. I should have I just actually put a resources page up on my website. smalldata.bigidea.com/resources has links to the testing roadmap, the spreadsheet. You can download it and use it as you please, as well as some the chi-squared calculator that I showed and the Optimizely sample size calculator. So if you want, I can tell you that again when I'm not standing up here. Yeah. Want to have a chat over a beverage? I think this is